So today we have the Republican candidates for town council. One, I want to start out by anyone that has ever volunteered their time. It's a tremendous amount of impact on your personal life, and I want to thank the candidates, anyone that's on council, just anyone that's on the MBA board. It's a lot of times it's a thankless job, but I want to thank them for stepping up and serving regardless of your positions politically. So please, thank you. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to ask each of the candidates that is running for office to come up and say a few words. And then once they're finished, we're going to go around the room. Each table is going to get to ask a question, whether it's on the list that some of you have provided or your own question. We'll go around the room and we'll keep going as long as time allows, or you run out of questions or whatever. So, all right, so there are two candidates, Manny Delgado, Jamie Boren. Please welcome.
Thank you for having us on MBA. My name is Jamie Boren. I actually am here as the Republican Council candidate with Manny. I also am a business owner on the Main Street. My husband and I bought Ralph's Market in May of last year. It is actually the second business that we've owned here in Moorestown. When we were 19 years old, we bought Zach's restaurant, which is now the abandoned luncheonette. And we ran that for 10 years. We sold it when I was pregnant with our second child. And I said I'd never own another business again. And here I am. And it's been wonderful. It really has. It's reconnecting with our old customers and meeting new people. It's obviously a little bit bigger and a little bit different, but it's been incredibly rewarding. And we love it. We love to be on the Main Street. My father-in-law actually owns the Happy Hippo, so we weren't unfamiliar with Main Street business. We have three kids. Zachary is 16, a junior at Moorestown High School. Lily is 12, going on 20. She's in the middle school, 7th grade, yes. Very happy to have a locker. And Caroline, we have a chandelier and a carpet for it, so we're very, very excited to have a locker. And I have Caroline, who is by my side all of the time. I jokingly say she's my favorite, because she is. No, she's the nicest one to me still. And she's very helpful. And she is the little butcher. So she loves to be at the market with her father. She is probably the only, she's 10 now, she's probably the only 9-year-old you know that operates a commercial fryer, because she can do it herself. And the youngest of 3 can always do it themselves. So what do? I currently serve on the zoning board here in Moorestown. I also serve on the Board of Ethical Standards and the Little Advisory Committee. I previously served on the Appearance Committee with Gina. She's here somewhere, or was here somewhere. I teach CCD at St. Charles and St. Vincent. This is my 6th year teaching 2nd grade. And I am the president of Moorestown Youth Softball. So, and I've been the president now for 4 years. And during that, we've increased our numbers, our participants. We've won 2 state championships. We're really developing the program, which is fantastic, and that's been so awesome. That is something that is very important to me and that I really do love. I also work for the fire district here in town. That's my full-time job. I love my husband, but I could never work with my husband. I go home with my husband. We did that for a very short period of time, years and years ago, and we are still married because I don't do that anymore. And I am also a volunteer for the Little Volunteer Fire Company. I'm the captain of the fire police. So that's a little bit about me, right? I think that might be everything. Oh, home and school. I also am involved in home and school. For those of you who have kids, if you have anybody at Roberts School, I've been the chair of fingerprinting at Roberts School for 9 years. I don't even have any students there anymore, but it's my favorite school, and I love the teachers and the principal, and they keep letting me come back and do fingerprinting, so I keep doing it. So I get to say hi to everybody, and yeah, so that's me.
Hi everyone. My name is Manny Delgado. We've been in town for a little bit over 10 years. Married to my wife, Amy. We have 4 kids, ranging from 16 all the way down to 9. So when you say thanks for all the help that we do and the time that we give up, it's really Amy that deserves all of that. She takes care of everything in the household, and I'm reminded of that every now and then. But so a little bit about me. Philadelphia born. We came here because in Philadelphia, in a lot of the areas around Moorestown, for us, schools were critical. And when we were looking with Amy was pregnant with our 3rd child, we thought we really need to find a district where we can raise a family and have them in really good schools. So we moved here, moved right behind Main Street over at French's Avenue, and then we're over on Walnut Court. I've done a little bit of everything in my lifetime. I was hoping to be a lifelong student. So I was a master's student, PhD student until about 24, 25. And then we started having kids, and that went awry and had to get to work. I've done a lot of community development work. I founded a community development corporation in Philadelphia down by the Art Museum area. If you knew that area 25 to 30 years ago, it's drastically different than it is now. And there was really a dividing line there where people just didn't cross 19th Street. So we did all the work from 19th Street to Broad Street, from Fairmount over to Spring Garden, and did a huge amount of development there. Went from there over to Kramer Hill in Camden. If anyone has been here in Jersey for a while, Kramer Hill was one of those billion-dollar plans that McGreevy had, and was supported by everyone in Camden City except for its residents. And they had huge outcry because they were going to move 1,000 residents from one area to build a golf course and some other things. Once the residents actually won in court and fought against that, I came in and was funded by a couple foundations and worked with residents around creating a new neighborhood plan that was inclusive, both from the community side and the government side. We developed a plan there in over 2 years, and since then they've built things like the Croc Center. If anyone's been down there, it's a 150,000 square foot facility. We've redone the entire landfill at this point, and that was part of what I did. In doing all of that, and doing the work in Philadelphia, by the Art Museum area, I worked also by Temple University area, and then in Camden, one of the things that I realized was you can't build good neighborhoods without good schools. And we were looking for good schools for our kids, who was really at the heart for me. So I then joined a school called Leap Academy over on Cooper Street, right at the foot of the entrance to the city, and it's associated with Rutgers. It's a small district there. I'm the lead person there, which is equivalent to like a superintendent. We have K-12 district, 1,500 kids, and really doing some really unique things there along there with the kids and the kids in Camden. So they're outstanding kids in Camden. I've been on council for 3 years. This is my 4th year actually. Served as the mayor last year and deputy mayor this year. One of the things that's probably the biggest accomplishment that we've had as a council was really dealing with the affordable housing piece. Incredibly difficult. Every town and municipality in the state has had to do that. We worked really hard as a group for 18 months, and I think we came away with probably the best plan that we could come away with. Why do I bring that up here with an MBA? A couple of things that we were looking at. One, that would have had a huge financial impact on the town in general. So whether you're a business owner that you own your space or you're renting, everything would have increased if we had the original numbers, which were 1,600 units. But also space. So we really took our time in looking where we could really designate areas for development. And we were pushed by the courts and by others to really start looking at the mall or other business districts and begin using that as an area to build affordable housing. We fought back and made sure that whatever we did was really within the fabric of the community and the neighborhoods. So again, running again, would love to be on town council for another 4 years to do some more work.
Thank you. So we're going to go around the room. Why don't we start with this table? You have a question for the candidates? If you don't, we'll move on to the next one. I'm sure there's other people. Any question? You want to go, Annette?
Yes, Annette McGuire. I was concerned to hear that the township has a debt of $60 million. Number one, can you confirm that's true? And second, what are we doing about it so we don't affect our bond rating?
So I think we could look at it the other way. So our bond rating. We have had, over the last couple of years, a steady increase in our bond rating. We're probably the only one in this entire region that has a AAA bond rating. We have a fantastic CFO in town. He was our township manager last year, now he's a CFO again. And he has steadily increased not only our bonding capacity, he has made sure that every time we do anything, any infrastructure work or anything else, we're fully apprised of it and its impact in town. We've been very conscious of, with all the infrastructure work that we're doing and everything else that we're doing in a structure that he actually knows, obviously he knows this better than I do, but we're doing notes instead of bonds, and we're doing this instead of that, so that everything is paced in a way that we can actually capture it and really continue to do that without having a huge impact for the tax base.
Yeah, I'm just worried about that in the future, that the bond rating would change because of the amount of the debt. But, I mean, you're aware of it and working toward, I'm sure, trying to decrease that.
Okay. Next table, any questions? A quiet group here. Okay. No question here? All right. We'll go to the next slide. Anyone have a question over here at this table?
I have a question. What is the plan next year when we actually work on these 2 water plants that we have for water supply for the town after the point that we reach our 400 million gallon cap at Kings Highway? How is the township going to meet the water supply and the water needs for the town?
I'm pretty sure that's it.
So Mike's been involved in the water issues for a long time and has been coming to council to discuss that with us. As Mike knows, that we're doing all the water treatment plants over. We've done Kings Highway. We're working on Church now to make sure that that's completely clean, and it is now, and doing the permanent piece there, and then we're moving up towards Hartford. All of those are going to be completed within, what, 2021?
2020, the end of 2020.
And all of that has been bonded for and is ready, and we're just waiting for permits on both of those currently. Obviously, that increases the amount that we've been held to. I think our ACO had, Mike knows this better than I do because Mike has worked on the water thing almost the entire year. We had a cap on what we could do with water. That's been increased now with our new amended ACO. And then as we continue to turn the plants over, again, that will be increased. I will tell you that the DEP has been very good to us in that whenever there was a new person, like Zoe's Kitchen was a good example, where they came in and they had a water issue, we were able actually to show them, and they helped us look through files where maybe there was a permit that didn't get through or something else, and they found and captured water from there to push towards new businesses coming in. I think in the interim, we can continue to do that with DEP, and then as we get the water treatment plants up and running, I think we'll be fine with that as well.
It's hard to hear over.
I'm sorry.
this side.
Sorry.
The question is, we're allowed to pump 400 million gallons out of Kings Highway. We're going to reach that by June next year. If North Church is shut down, and the only working place is Kings Highway, and we're not allowed to pull any more water out of it.
North Church.
North Church isn't shut down.
Well, you're going to shut it down to be able to
Shut Kings Highway down to build that.
Well, you're utilizing a lot of the equipment currently in the temporary treatment.
That's all
The
right
carbon
there.
filters aren't going to be utilized.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to do
You'd have to take them down to be able to.
There won't be an interruption.
Yeah,
There won't be any interruption at all?
Right.
Right. So, and whatever
There won't
else.
be an interruption service.
that. Minimal, but off-season.
It's off season.
So you don't do it during the summer months, obviously, as well, when you're in.
It's the highest demand.
Yeah, when you have your highest demand.
When you have all the irrigation going.
So they're not going to be building during the summer?
No, just like with Kings Highway, I don't want to turn this into a
No.
water meeting, I'm sorry, man, but just like Kings Highway, we had to shut the plant down to do the crossovers with the pumps. We did that off-season. We're still obligated to buy the water we have to buy from New Jersey American. So during the summer seasons, we pump what we can, and then when the season ends and our demand goes down, that's when they can shut down, buy from New Jersey American, which we're obligated to buy, living off of Church in that case with Kings Highway. Something similar occurred with the plants
So
at
they're
Church.
doing it during off-season, we won't be building during the summer?
No, the building will be going on when they do the connections, when they
do
start
switch over,
changing
right.
and putting the train in place for the filtration. That would be done in off-season. So,
Okay.
At the far table, you have any questions over there?
This isn't a question, but just a statement. The Crop Center is wonderful. I spent some time in Camden. You should actually take a look at Camden again. It is wonderful, all the development that's going on, and the people are so thrilled with the Crop Center. It's just a wonderful, and appreciate the work you did to get that all done.
What are sort of the big concerns? What are the big things on the horizon for the next 12 to 24 months that residents, business owners in Moorestown ought to be concerned about and really worried about in terms of, what council's doing, what's on council's plate, what are the things that are up for change, debate, et cetera, over the course of the next couple of years?
Okay, well, COA, because it's not done, or fair share housing, it's not COA anymore, but that definitely is still ongoing. And Manny was the architect of that. I mean, I think all of council will agree that they all participated, but Manny led that. And it was not a simple task at all.
I think that's probably the biggest thing, I would, from my perspective. But one of the things, we did go through the fairness hearing, so that's completed. We are doing and working towards the agreements with all the folks that have intervened, developers that want to build. We have one of those completed, we still have the other 4 to go. And then we have to go through the final approval with the courts. Once that's done, I think we'll be okay. The issue that we're going to have moving forward is go back a little bit. One of the things that really is great for the town is that we did it through a vacant land adjustment, which meant you just looked at all the vacant land that you have, you obligate that, and everything that has been developed already basically falls under the normal zoning. A lot of the other towns that weren't able to use a vacant land adjustment, when they go forward after 2025, they're going to have a 4th obligation. And there's going to be a created number for them that they have to renegotiate with the courts and with fair share. For Moorestown, our final number, because of the vacant land adjustment, is 337. Anyone in town that wants to develop on any parcel is going to have to go through the normal zoning process. So at this point, all that land control comes back to the township. All the other municipalities that haven't done the vacant land adjustment, they're still going to have interveners coming in and doing builder's remedy on them, which means a developer can come, put in an agreement on a parcel, and force the town to negotiate with them on a number that the town really didn't want to accept anyway. So they could take a commercial district and just throw housing on there and say, we could put 20 an acre on that site, and now you've got to negotiate with me. We've taken that completely away and put that power back in the hands of the township that allows us to go through the normal process. So that's probably the big thing. Obviously, the water thing is a great thing that we're moving through. I think by the time we're done, and thanks to Mike, Mike spent the most time on this stuff, is we're going to have the cleanest water in town. We didn't have an MCL before for anything, and we're sort of way ahead of that. So all of the contaminants that were of concern in the past are being addressed through a temporary treatment plant. The state has now come out with an MCL that we beat by, I mean, we have no traces at this point. We're not detecting anything on our water treatment plants. So that's the thing, and we're going to continue doing the infrastructure pieces. I don't know if there's anything else.
I have a little pet project, the Linola corridor and the $1 million grant that we were awarded. It's a TAP grant. It's a federal grant, which means that it takes forever. So it was issued, and then what happens is that you have to have your professionals qualified. They don't want you to get the money and then hire your cousin Joe to do all the site work. So there's a whole process that goes along with that. We're finally out of that process, and we're ready to start moving. I don't know that the date's it's coming. There'll be another. We had meetings in the past at the Linola Firehouse for any resident, but that is interested in coming, or business owner, because Camden Avenue is a business corridor as well. To come out and view the streetscape plan and sidewalks and trees and lighting and give input and to see what's going on. That has not stalled. It is the natural process of a federal grant. And so as far as the federal government's concerned and the grant process, we're right on track with that. So, and I was on the Linola Advisory Committee, and I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to see it implemented.
Could you explain a little bit more about what the plan is and what the timeline is?
I don't know.
We got a public meeting.
We have a public meeting I haven't seen the final or the finished draft. They're finalizing all of that now. I can tell you that based on the meetings that we've had in the past, it involved crosswalks, traffic slowing, streetscape, trees, lighting, a general upgrade from the Rita's Water Ice to Revere Avenue. And everything, in between. So We've already had a couple of businesses in Linola change hands, buildings bought. Anybody remembers Daniel Pucci's property? It was purchased, it's going to be, it's been completely rehabbed. I'm really excited about that. Hairs to You is now a wig shop and they do extensions. So, Mike, I mean, you're on Camden Avenue, you know how important it is to
Is there going to be another meeting in the future?
Oh, there will be very soon, like I said, because we're just, what's that?
It's like a year or two. The last meeting for the Knoll.
It was about a year and a half ago, and that was when we had applied for the grant. Like, we had the idea of what we wanted to do, and we applied for the grant. We were awarded the grant, but then it was, and then it was qualifying the professionals. So, and that is, we are at the mercy of those who issued the grant to get through that process, and we're there.
At the federal level and also the county
Yeah.
level?
Yeah,
Just at
it's
federal.
federal.
For the presentations of these plans.
I'm sorry?
Is there a timeline?
There will be.
when
I
that is
believe beginning of
accepted?
October, very beginning of October is what we're looking at.
First public meeting.
Definitely Linola residents and business owners will be notified as to when that is. And then I'm sure we'll make public notification to, you know, in the Sun or Patch or whatever, so that anybody, because, I mean, Linola, people of Linola, the business owners of Linola care about it, but everybody should care about it because it's still Moorestown and it should still look like Moorestown and it should still be treated like Moorestown. That's important to me. So, so that's coming.
Anyone else over here? Are you good?
When will Percheron Park be completed?
Percheron Park has been one of those environmental messes that I guess the township bought that 7 or 8 years ago at this point.
Longer.
Yeah.
Actually,
Um,
Mayor Aberrant was
Yep.
the lead on that.
And part of the agreement for that was obviously that the person that they purchased it from would be doing the cleanup. That cleanup has been an annual cleanup, so I don't think, and I haven't looked personally at this thing, but my guess is, and probably pretty correct, is that
It's 13 more years.
yeah, he had a time in which he had to clean that. So he's extending his time so that he's doing a little bit and a little bit and a little bit at a time. So he's probably spending $25,000, $30,000 a year and doing minor cleanups instead of going in and doing the major cleanup at one time. I know we have talked about going in as a township and trying to push that or possibly figuring out another way where we can do that ourselves. I know it's costly. I know it's been something that's been a thorn in everybody's side, including mine, especially after they do a little bit of cleanup and they've driven through with their backhoes and it's a hot mess. But that agreement was done.
Well, Dave Serling did that. It was when Mayor Aberrant and Ann Siegel had the idea of buying that piece.
So
And,
now it is, yeah.
Yeah, and then Dave was the attorney at the time, and I don't think he did a very good job with that contract, unfortunately. That left it so open-ended that they could do this kind of slow play. The thing with the environmental gasoline contaminant is they all know if you leave it in the soil long enough, it will actually dissipate on its own. So Marathon's not being a good player in all this, quite frankly. But, yeah.
It is one of the things that we continue to talk about. And we've talked to some folks in town that are experts on this to try to figure out what can we do to help push this a little bit. There are some LSRPs that have been talking to us about this method, that method. And now that we have Tom Neff, the new person in town, that's one of the discussion pieces that we have with them.
Thank you. Questions, you guys good? Diane, go ahead.
Hi, as a business association, we have, one of our main focuses have been to identify ways that we as business owners, people who work in town, people who live in town, can contribute to a more thriving Main Street. Because a Main Street community is usually, the Main Street will be the heart of the community. And with the slow shift from having retail on Main Street to having more professional businesses on Main Street, then the walkability and the interest of people to come and support some of these more local businesses slowly goes away. And so we invited the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission to come and make a presentation about some of their best practices that exist for Main Street communities, and they were here earlier this year. And because Moorestown is considered a classic town of Greater Philadelphia, the Delaware Regional Planning Commission focuses on Moorestown and has data and research and recommendations based off researching our community. And I was wondering if any of those recommendations or guidelines are part of your plans for the future of Moorestown, because the research already exists, so it would help make the job easier.
So I think that was one of the questions over there, and I took the time over the week to take a look at that. First, that study, I know which one you're referring to, was sort of a larger metadata analysis study of all towns, 100 different municipalities, and taking a look at it. And in that study itself, there weren't really specific pieces to Moorestown saying, this are the 10 steps that you could do. But there's a lot of good ideas in there. Unfortunately, I don't know where it is. I know that hasn't truly been presented to council yet. I only heard about it this week, so we did take a look at it. But one of the things in there was walkability was obviously a big thing. We had a very low score compared to some of the towns that are thriving, like Haddonfield had like a 91 and we were 70, Collingswood. But some of the other things I think we already know, right? Our blocks, it's 5 blocks compared to like a Haddonfield that was 12 and a Collingswood that always comes up that's almost 20. There are a lot of other things within that study, the percentages of retail and housing, for instance for Collingswood, where you could actually have lived workspace, where we really don't have that here. And some other pieces with the office space and some of the other things where we're far higher in percentages. I think it's a conversation piece that we need to have. I know EDAC hasn't seen the study either, so maybe that's something that can be shared with them.
I can send you the links.
Yeah.
It's public information.
Yep.
So.
And that'd be a great starting point for conversations. I know we've walked Main Street as well and talked about we can do meters here, let's extend this here and do some cutouts here and there, and that's still ongoing. But there's a lot more stuff that we can do together as a group along Main Street, and not just Main Street, but also Camden Avenue, some of the other areas.
I mean, is there any possibility for like a business development person connected to the staffing of the township that would help attract a more diverse business landscape maybe in Lanola and Main Street?
Part of the hiring that was done with Tony Zapzotti, one of the sort of tasks under his community development arm was to take a look at the main streets and the business districts and work with the MBA and some others to come up with some recommendations and do that work. And I know he's been working closely with you all on some pieces. Yeah.
We haven't gotten a lot of traction yet, but he understands that like anyone new to these jobs, you get overwhelmed pretty quick.
Right.
So what's on your plate there? All right. Any other question? What else we got here? Yeah.
Excuse me. I was wondering if, in your respective opinions, what is the most valid criticism of the current council, and then what is the most invalid criticism of the council?
Let me take that. I can take it, but it's the same answer for both. Communication. So we get criticized a lot for not being really good communicators and getting news out there to all of the community, right? So one good example of that is Memorial Park, where we were doing just basically a study and see what can occur there. And because someone took that to all the neighbors and said it was, a completed project and this is starting tomorrow, there was some backlash from that. So council as a whole, I think we can take the blame for not really doing a great job of communicating. The other side of that, we communicate a lot. So there are a lot of means for communication. And from my perspective, and I know it's not a pleasant thing to hear sometimes, but it's also the citizenry has a responsibility to make sure that they know, right? We keep everything on the website. We have the Nixle. We have a lot of ways that we use to communicate. And quite honestly, there's a lot of things that we talk about and discuss. And for us, it's been discussed for 6 months, and we know it's well communicated, but for some reason it hasn't gone out there. And we had the issue where we tried to hire a communication director, and that wasn't looked upon favorably to help with that. So that's probably a fair criticism, but also one that we're like, wow, we're trying to do a good job there, and we feel like we are in some instances, but there's a balance. I understand that.
But you did hire Boyd Communications to help with communications, right?
We did. We did.
What happened with that?
Well, there's a couple things. One, there was a huge backlash just in general. So the main reason for that was sort of what we had seen from the communication about water. For us, every town council meeting was about the water. We had that discussion openly. It was at a public hearing. We went through that. We did the annual reports. We mailed that out. We do all the other things that we do. And the constant thing was, we're just not hearing enough. So for all of us, it was like, well, we're sort of at the max of what we think we can do. Let's hire someone else. As soon as we passed that, it was meeting after meeting of just people saying, why are we hiring this? This is politically motivated. We're doing this only for political reasons. So Boyd, understandably, was a little bit disturbed by that. We were a little bit disturbed by that, and it just had a rocky start and never really took off, to be honest with you.
And what can you do to make, during town council meetings, a lot more time for citizens to be able to voice their opinion in?
Yeah, so we've never shied away from that. We have a workshop, half hour before every meeting from 7 to 7:30, where anyone can come up and discuss anything. In times that, so the last meeting we just had, we had a big group, about 100. We actually stopped our regular meeting, which starts at 7:30, and extended that until the last person spoke. And then after our agenda, all the things that we have to do, the official action, we extend time again at the end of the meeting. So if anyone thinks of something that they didn't think of, they can speak there.
Is that
So
new?
That's been since I've been on council, so
Done it
that's
for
the last
affordable,
4
we've
years.
done it with water.
Yeah.
This is, yeah.
Yeah, because again, and I could be totally wrong, but there was someone who said that they waited 3 hours during a town council meeting and wanted to have an opportunity to express their opinion, and the town council just said, well, the meeting's over, we have day jobs.
We've never done that. And honestly, that would never come out of anyone that's on council's mouth right now, that we have day jobs. With everyone up there, regardless of party affiliation, has been super respectful and is willing to hear everything. We've stayed at meetings until 11, 12 o'clock without a complaint from any of us, because that's part of the duty.
Manny, I didn't know, I don't think it was a council meeting.
It was a zoning board meeting.
Yes.
Zoning board meeting.
Oh.
I serve on the zoning
Yeah.
board. We do have a hard stop for zoning, typically at midnight, midnight's pretty late on a
The hard stop's-
Tuesday.
the hard stop's actually 11.
And 5:30 comes early, when we have to get up in the morning. So zoning board has always had a hard stop at midnight. I think we did extend to 12:30 because we were at the very end of a 3-meeting application. And we continued and added special meetings in order to accommodate all of the residents, because every single person that wanted to speak was given the opportunity to speak. And so, yes, zoning board has typically had a hard stop at midnight.
If I could just tail on to that, sitting on zoning board myself for those years. Also in zoning, what happens in an application process, we saw it with a McDonald's in Linola. The union, because it was an open shop job, actually had people coming in asking in mundane questions about the drainage or whatever, on and on, just to filibuster the application to make it painful for the applicant. So from a business perspective on zoning, and Pete Thorndike's the attorney, is very, very aware of who's asking questions, if you will. So I don't know that any resident's ever been shut down, but after questions have been asked and answered and asked and answered, then somebody would be asked to take a seat at that point. So, but to Manny's point on council, we go way out of our way to let everybody who has a thought or a comment speak, even when they do come back and repeat themselves multiple times in an evening, because it's important to us that we give everybody an opportunity to talk.
Yeah, we recognize that if you're coming to a town council meeting, there's something on your mind and you're going to say it.
Right.
So we want to make sure that you have that opportunity.
Okay, we have some lady's been very patient. Okay.
Unfortunately, all of this discussion has basically made me take even more notes, so forgive me if this is all just disjointed, and for also going back to something we've already talked about. The affordable housing, you said your 3 years was your crowning achievement, and then into the future, it is the most important thing that you'll be working on. There have been a lot of complaints, and we covered this already as well, about lack of input from the residents being made available, as well as the communication going outbound. And it's one thing to admit both of those things is the case if someone actually just asked that question. But I don't see any changes in the behavior. And there was the complaint, it was proposed that the mediation, we were told, I think, time and time again, we're in mediation, we're not allowed to talk about it. That's not my understanding of the limit of 0 information to have been shared during a 3-year period while that was going on. And you mentioned the business owners benefit during, if the buildings, affordable housings are in fact put in, and that's great, and I'm assuming that's gonna happen. You completely failed to mention the residents around the property who are being sued, and that still hasn't been resolved.
Right.
And you didn't mention that in your list of things to do before it happens.
So a couple things on that. One is that COA piece is absolutely without a doubt litigation. And every township, not just Moorestown, all 564 that are dealing with this, when you have 5 or 6 people or organizations that are coming into your town and saying, I'm taking that parcel and I'm doing 1,000 units. I'm gonna take this parcel, I'm doing another one, and somebody else says I'm doing 500 over here, and then someone else says they're doing 300 over here. And the courts have decided that you've got to deal with all of them at one time, and you've got about 9 months to do that. There is no way, and I can take criticism for that all day long, that I'm going to tell anyone when I'm negotiating with this person and how I'm dealing with 7 or 8 different issues on this site, so that this person over here could take advantage of that knowledge and push a different agenda, and that person over here be the third person to push the town and take advantage on other issues. Absolutely not. Every township has done this the same way. Any litigation that you have in town has been in closed session, in closed doors. Every single piece that we have been able to discuss, we've discussed openly. We had several meetings on the whole process. We did that with planning board, no less than 3 times in closed session, so that planning board fully understood what we were doing, how we were doing, what the decisions were, and why they were made. And then we did that publicly for 3 meetings. And at all of those meetings, we went over the same PowerPoint so that everyone had an opportunity to see the same thing, and then ask those questions that they weren't there to hear or discuss in the first time. So we did everything we could to be as open we could with a process that's in court. There's very little that we can do for a process that's litigation and go out there and have discussions and open discussions about negotiations with developers. Is it a fair criticism? Sure. Were our hands tied? Absolutely. And will we do it again? Absolutely. Because it was the best interest of the town to do it that way. So on the communication piece, I think we've gotten better. We've taken a lot of flack, council has, over the affordable housing, saying everything was done behind closed doors. There's these deals that were made and everything else. Absolutely not true. It was part of the litigation. We had to do it that way. To the extent and the conversation about the residents being sued, builder's remedy is very simple. If you want to buy a parcel, if you have that parking lot and the community house wants to sell it, someone can come in and sign an agreement and say, I'm going to do that and I'm going to build 20 per acre. There's 2 acres out there. We're going to put 40. We're going to push it to 60 in this township, and we're going to do that. But there's a deed restriction. It doesn't matter. The fact that that person has a sales agreement and is coming in under a builder's remedy piece, the township has to take a look at that and has to negotiate it. And if we don't, the courts do. And the courts have not been kind to anyone in the entire state. So when we were fighting on the per acre number, which we got all the way reduced down to below 12, the courts person was pushing 20 per acre. When that builder came in, Penrose, and said they wanted to do something there, they kept pushing the number higher and higher. When we said there's a deed restriction there, she said it doesn't matter, it's a builder's remedy. Either you deal with it now, or we'll divide them, we'll come up with a number, and they're going to go through that court process anyway. So it was in the best interest of the town to actually work with them, make sure that we got the development size that we wanted, make sure that we had all the buffers in place that we wanted, and then allow them to go ahead and deal with everything. Does it stink that there's a lawsuit? Absolutely. But there would have been a lawsuit regardless had we supported it or not. And instead of doing 90 units there, we might have been doing 200 units there. And that's the truth, because that's the way the system is set up. There is no township in all the municipalities in the state that wouldn't have done the same thing. And if they do, they would have lost. We always bring this up as an example, and sorry for people that live in Delran, but Delran fought against a number of 40 affordable units in their town. And they fought and fought and fought, and people came to the township meeting and said, absolutely not, we're not doing 40. And that number is ballooned down because fair share housing, they're human beings that feel this is a mission, and they're offended that you don't want to do 40. So now they're making Delran look at every development they've done over this gap period of 10 years. And every single one that they've done, and we've all seen development in Delran, for all of those, they have to do 20% of it. Forget the fact that it's already built. You built 80 there, that's great. You owe me 16 units somewhere else. You built 100 over here, that's great. You owe me 20 units somewhere else. And fair share is beating them up to a number that's like 300 or 400 at this point.
800.
It's 800.
800, which is even
40 to 800.
Yep.
Anyone else? Oh, do we have a question over here? Nope, I'm sorry, we're running out of time, I'm sorry.
I'd like to go talk about the master plan for a few minutes. I understand that the committee meets in private and it's not been open, and that there are no minutes because there are not enough people appointed to the committee to make a quorum.
Planning board.
So why is that? I think the process, when they did the process before, in the 80s, it was a very open process, and the whole town was involved. They had open meetings, they had people go with plans, with various plans, and people could put their input in. What's going on?
Does that come later?
It does. So the way I understand, and Mike, you're on the planning board, I'm not on the committee. So So the way I understand is that there's a planner that's hired, and that planner breaks up into several subcommittees to talk about the several different issues in town, whether it be housing, walkability, affordable housing.
It's a review.
It's a review by those committee members. They come back to the full board in public hearings and discuss what they've reviewed, and then that's the time for input from everyone. I know.
But there are no open meetings and no minutes.
For the
I don't want, again, this is your meeting, I don't want to jump in, but there's a huge misconception going on
There
here.
must be, because lots of people have complained.
There has been no master plan meetings at
Mike,
all.
Mike,
There's none.
why are you answering the question?
Because I'm sitting, I guess why I'm answering it is because I'm sitting on the committee that you're alleging that we're having meetings without minutes, without public input. And that's not true, it's just plainly not true. There's been meetings for the review of the master plan by 4 members of the planning board and the professional planner to then read through the existing master plan and make comments to the existing master plan, presenting that report to the planning board, for the planning board then to take that and have the public meetings that you're talking about, where we would then have discussion about any changes to the master plan. There's no changes being implemented, there's no changes even being suggested, there's just a report of what is either working or not working within the existing master plan. And once that report goes to the full planning board, then it goes, just as you said, in years past, there's a full-blown process.
There are no minutes of those meetings.
There are no minutes.
No.
It's a draft report, yeah, it's, so, that's the process. It's been done that way ever since,
Ever since you've been around?
no, since the beginning of master planning. This subcommittee's been
Time
done.
for 2 more questions. I need to ask one on behalf of our members. The permit process, which we talked about at EDAC, someone that just recently opened it said it took 6 weeks to open in Turnersville, 9 months to open in Moorestown. I know in EDAC, some members recognize that there is a problem with the permit process, others don't think there's anything wrong with it. Where do you stand on it? Where are opportunities to help new businesses come into town and make it a smoother process? Because as you both know, it's not always the township. Sometimes people don't know what they need to do, but how do we communicate to them better?
So I'm a little familiar with this. So a couple of things. First is the construction department or the township has changed the permitting process just a little bit. It used to be that you would submit permits and it would go to construction and all of the different subcode officials that were related to the application. From there, it would go to zoning. From there, it would go to DPW for water, which just extended the time. Now, the application splits when you turn it in. So it goes to construction and the subcode officials for review at the same time. It goes to zoning and DPW. So that's all coming together as one. I know that the township is looking into and hope currently and in the next 6 months, we'll be implementing a new computer system that will allow applicants to basically track their application from the time they submit it. So you'll be able to get your number for your application and log on and know exactly where your application is. If it's sitting on the fire subcode officials or the construction official or if zoning has it. So everybody, you know where your holdup is or what's going on. I also know that sometimes things happen that are, and just from what I do for a living, sometimes people submit about applications. I know that the construction office is very good about reviewing them and sending them out. I also know that some people don't always recognize that their application's been denied and they don't act on it. So it's there's a fire code, there's a construction code that have to be abided by. That's nothing that the township has any control over. Those different requirements have to be met. So sometimes there's a miscommunication. I talk to people all the time and say, oh, I'm waiting for construction to tell me where my application is. And I call construction for them and they say, oh yeah, we denied that, plumbing denied that 2 weeks ago and we haven't heard anything. So at least this way with the login, they'll be able to log in and you'll go, it's completed, so why don't I have it?
Are there any plans to do a step-by-step for new business owners that's been discussed?
That I'm not
whether it's
sure,
our council
but
or with Tony's position? Or
there is one more piece. I think that construction is also looking at hiring. So currently, construction gets the application, your plumbing subcode official would review the application for the plumbing requirements, fire for the fire requirements. They're looking to hire a review official who is only, because your fire subcode is also not only reviewing plans, but then going out into the field to make sure that the plans that they reviewed a month ago or 2 months ago are being implemented properly. So you're gonna have one person, hopefully, I hope, that will be doing all of these reviews. And then you'll have your inspectors. And all of that inspection was brought in-house. So we used to Moorestown used to subcontract their subcode officials. They're all employees of the township now, so, which gives greater control.
Is that part of last meeting, we had Noam, who did 941 payroll, moved from Balton to Moorestown. He was very complimentary of the process. I wanted to show that, so he had recognized that went right on time there. I just, unfortunately, like so often you hear the ones that are unhappy, but he stood
I
up.
think that's part of it too. So one of the nice things, and I know Mike's reviewing the system because he does this in all the towns, so he has that knowledge as well. He'll bring that to council. One of the nice things about this is if we can do this so that everyone sees it at the same time and it's virtual, everyone can see it, is the accountability piece. So now we can say, on average, and it could be sort of an edict almost to that department, no application should take longer than this time. And how many, and we can actually hold people accountable. So.
All right, folks, thank you so much. You did a great job.